Bri, I have no idea what we're going to talk about today. There's like nothing going on in Warriors land.
I know we might have to start talking out of our butt cheeks.
It might be, we might just have to make stuff up. I think obviously everybody knows what the big topic is in Warriors land today, and it is about none other than Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. Now, I have a little bit of a timeline because we read everything. I read everything that the Athletic puts out. I'm like looking at certain quotes. I'm trying to figure out, how guys are feeling about certain things. And so I've put together a little, a off-season, preseason timeline that could or could not have something to do with what happened between Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. If you were not paying attention, there was a fight at practice yesterday. Everybody has said, at least who have gone on record, has been, Jordan Poole didn't really do anything and he's fine. And so not really saying it, but saying it that it was kind of Draymond's fault. Draymond apologized to the team today. And let's just kind of break this down. I'm interested in some of the things, and you can interrupt me as I go through this. So one of the things that we've kind of been interested in is this evolution of Jordan Poole. And we talked about this, I think it was on the last show, where what's the prioritization of getting the contracts done? It's Jordan Poole, and then is it Wiggins, and then is it Draymond, or is it Klay? And so there's like a hierarchy. And it seems pretty clear that Jordan Poole is the highest priority for the Warriors right now. So let's just keep that in mind as we discuss this. Dante DiVincenzo did an interview with Anthony Slater, and he said that when the preseason started, that the first team was kicking the second team's butt in practice, and the second team would not have Jordan Poole on it because Klay is not currently practicing. So Jordan Poole would have been on the first team playing with Steph, Draymond, Looney, and Wiggs, and Dante on the second team. So Draymond and Jordan Poole probably playing together in this scrimmage. When the Warriors were in Japan, and we'll talk about the preseason in a second, Klay joked about humbling Jordan Poole when he and Steph took on Poole and Moody in the 3-point shootout in Japan. He joked, Jordan Poole did like a pretend, I still am not really envisioning this correctly, but he did sort of some pretend mock reporter session or something, and then Klay joked, "Oh, he's trying to take y'all's job too." So that was a stiff Heisman by Klay there. On Draymond's podcast, which I believe came out a couple days ago, Draymond said he liked seeing Jordan Poole humbled, and that Jordan Poole was very confident before the shootout, but then he was passive aggressive after losing the 3-point shootout to Klay and Steph. As we know, based on last year, Jordan Poole got some guidance from Andre Iguodala. There was the story that I believe is Anthony and Marcus wrote, where they mentioned that Jordan Poole had gotten upset and threw a basketball and hit a monitor or something, and Andre was like, you got to take it out of his check. It's not coming out of everybody's check. And so there was this idea that, Jordan Poole had some tough times, and he needed that vet guidance to sort of help get him through. And we go back to this contract situation, beginning of, I think it was on Media Day, actually. They asked Draymond about his contract situation, and he pretty much said that he didn't think that it would get done. But when they talked about like how he would vision it, is it going to bother him? He said, I think the way a contract situation will weigh on me is totally different than the way it would weigh on a Jordan Poole who has never signed a big contract. So we fast forward to Bob Myers today. Bob Myers said, all punishment is internal but he didn't think, he specified this piece that he didn't think it was contract related. They thought the beef was a normal practice basketball beef, though there could be frustrations underneath that as to why that could have happened. What did Steph say today? Steph seemed to poo-poo the notion that maybe Poole was feeling himself a little bit and being a distraction or whatever that report was. Steph said, nope, Jordan's been great. Steve Kerr said, nope, Jordan's been great. That's misinformation. And Steph seemed to lean towards Jordan Poole, even like almost like, I don't know if he was disappointed in Dre. I couldn't tell. But when they asked him about the apology, he was like, well, you got to ask everybody else how it landed with them. So who's the person who I look to in this time of need and guidance? It is one Andre Iguodala, and he tweeted last night. I was waiting for this last night. He tweeted and it said, "What we not gonna do is talk crazy about my young fella JP. Great character kid. Miss me with all that other BS. Straight from the source." And he says, "And it's family business with my bro Money Green too." So in this situation, it seems like Andre is, again, similar to Kerr, similar to Steph. No, Jordan's not a problem. Like, Jordan is fine. Jordan's having a great preseason. All of those things being said, do you think this has something to do with the idea that Draymond is not their top priority when it comes to extending his contract, and also that, Jordan Poole is a really good player right now, and that maybe that big brother, that big bro tough love, maybe it doesn't land as softly as it did last year before they won the title. What is your take on all the things that are happening here?
Yeah, I mean, I can read all the reports and listen to Steph and Bob and all those guys, and I think they're probably right. Like, I'm sure at the moment it didn't seem like it was anything related to the contract. It was just Draymond got heated in the moment and then took it out on JP. I'm sure JP wasn't completely like didn't say nothing, but I don't think he said anything to warrant a punch. But I think it's definitely got to do with, and no matter how much Dre says it, like, I approached this contract, having a contract year, different than JP might, because JP's never had a big contract. I think Draymond is like subliminally or deep down processing that Jordan Poole's going to make more money than him.
I think that's a thing. And now I don't think like if you're Draymond, over the course of Draymond's career, he has made a lot of money, more money than Jordan Poole as a vet, as somebody who's been in this league for a while. So it's not that, it is the all of a sudden what Jordan Poole does on a basketball court is more highly valued in the league than what Draymond Green does on a basketball court. And that has nothing to do with winning, right? It has nothing to do with what you've done prior.
Mm-hmm.
It has everything to do with what we expect you to do going forward. And I wonder how much of this is going to be a thing once that cap spikes that we were talking about last week or a couple weeks ago. The idea that the cap is going to go up and all these people are going to start making way more money. And you kind of want to get your opt out like right around the time that the cap goes crazy, or else, you become underpaid in a sense. And this is going to be a bigger thing. I wonder how much of it had to do with the Tyler Herro contract going all the way up to 130. Now, some people say that, at least some stuff that I've read, think that some of that is some things that he would have to get to statistically that he probably won't get to.
It's 4 for 130, but 120 guaranteed. The extra 10 in incentives is like MVP, defensive player of the year, first team All-NBA.
120 is still higher
years.
than what we thought that Jordan, like everyone sort of earmarked Jordan at 100, right? But now all of a sudden it's higher than 120. I'm sure that's what Jordan's agent is looking at, is
Mhm.
Whatever the guaranteed money is for Hero, we're better than him. We should make more money than him.
Yeah.
And so all of those things, if you're Draymond and you're just like, you know, all the tough love and all the things that we did for this guy. And Andre was telling us last year, right? Andre was telling us last year, Jordan Poole's going to get paid. Like that seemed to be some of the inspiration for Andre, was to help get this guy paid. And like you said, he's going to get paid more than Draymond. And I think Draymond's probably in like the 26, 27 range right now as far as his yearly. And if it's 120 or more, that is $30 million a year, and that would be higher than what Draymond. Now, I don't think that this is only about that. I don't think that Draymond is this petty guy, but I do think someone at his competitive level and his value and what he believes he does on the court when it comes to winning, he has to have a high expectation, a high ego. But I don't think that's the only reason that he could possibly get angry. It's probably a bunch of other things. Some of it is this dynamic, right? If you are Jordan Poole and last year these vets are riding you hard, and this year you come in with being a title winner, you got that one ring, or you're about to get your one ring, and then you're probably kicking butt in practice, right? If before Klay, Draymond, they're kind of teaching you how to play, how to be a pro. And then you come back, and I have no idea what's going on. I just keep hearing Jordan's having a great camp, Jordan's having a great preseason. But if Jordan is balling out, he may not want to take that smack necessarily, right? It may be a little bit more of him giving it. So there's some dynamics at play here. But I just thought it was interesting, like, once this thing happened, I started to think of all of these little quotes that I was reading and how it possibly relates to this
Mhm.
scenario. And what I wonder, they said, I think Draymond's going to be back on Saturday. It doesn't look like he's going to be suspended, but they did send him home. And like I said, he did apologize today. But the one who I'm kind of thinking about is Klay, because of that comment where he said he's trying to take my job. Now, as long as Klay plays basketball and is somebody who continues to get buckets, I think just by the seniority of this team, he's probably going to keep starting. But maybe their
Mhm.
minutes get a little bit closer to matching up. I think that, but who knows? Maybe that is in sort of the contract situation here for Jordan. He's like, yeah, I kind of want to start. Like I want more minutes. I want to play more. And I don't know if that's in it or not. It could be, could not be. I'm sure everything is on the table when it comes to negotiations. But uh, Clay's the one that I'm kind of worried about, because if it is this thing where Jordan is coming up and Clay's not practicing or not scrimmaging right now, right? They don't even plan to have him play. There was a tweet by Slater that I'll find in a second here, but that's the other piece of this. Is I'm kind of wondering, like, what's going on with Klay. It seems like there's definitely like a mental thing that he needs to get over because of how he hurt himself in the past, but for that to happen now seems a little weird to me. I hope that there's no secret injury. I can't imagine that there is, that probably would have come out at some point, but he's not going to play Sunday. And they're still, Slater reported today that they're still cautiously easing him back into game action. Like, what do you think about this Klay scenario as it relates to everything?
I mean, when you were saying you were looking forward to seeing what Iguodala had to say, I kind of wanted to hear what Klay had to say. I thought that would have been an interesting take on everything. Um, like what is my opinion on what Klay thinks, I guess?
Well, just how does he fit into this whole thing? Because he's like, if he's got this mental frustration over not being able to play, he sees Jordan coming over his shoulder. The less Klay is on the court, who's going to take his spot?
Yeah.
The guy who he's worried about taking his spot.
Yeah. I mean that's a fair way to look at it. I didn't totally picture in Klay to the scenario, but I mean I totally get what you're saying there. Is it Draymond sticking up for Klay in a weird way? I don't know. I was gonna more say along the lines of like on trying to understand where Draymond's coming from, if he's been like has some pent up stuff inside of him. Like
Mhm.
if you look at like where the league is, it values and puts scores, people who could put the ball in the basket as their poster child.
Shot
And you look at
creators. Yeah.
shot creator, yeah, people who could put the ball in the bucket, man. And you look at Twitter, and it's always the thing with Draymond with triple single, and like
The backpack.
the backpack. I'm more trying to say that like a lot of people who I feel like don't value the game, but it doesn't help that the league and how you're paid doesn't totally see the value. But like Draymond's probably the second most valuable player in the whole championship run, the whole 4 titles they have. He's probably overall second most important. So it's like, if he's not getting paid to show that he's the second most important, on Twitter you see triple single, you see people making fun of him because he's not scoring. I could see how that can get to you a little bit, regardless of how credentialed you are as an NBA player and as an analyst. It's like I watched the guy, and obviously, when I was playing, that's who I I don't know if I tried to model, but that's kind of definitely who was more of my comparison. I'm not no NBA player, but I couldn't really score the basketball, and I was really good at playing defense, and I had a good IQ. So I just always thought I played a little like Draymond. But obviously Draymond, I just think he brings so much value that you can't necessarily see on a stat sheet is what Draymond does, and I feel like that's just not valued in when it comes to who gets paid.
He's also always playing with a chip on his shoulder. That is part of why he is so good. He is looking for reasons to have to prove somebody wrong, right? So maybe it could also be that he's coming into camp. He wants to have an excellent year because he wants to show the Warriors, like, you may value some of the things that you value, but don't forget about me. And he does have the player option. He can opt in at the end of the season and have one more year with the Warriors and then be a free agent next year. Or he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to opt into that player option, and he could be a free agent. So there is also some questions about what his basketball future is going to be like. And, ultimately, I think that I always want to hear what Andre says, just because he looks at it in such a, I think, in such a unique way that I think some people may not think about until he speaks. But ultimately, the guy who really matters is Steph. And so that's why it was very interesting to see Steph kind of come to Jordan Poole's side a little bit. I don't think he's anti-Draymond. I think he loves Draymond probably the most out of everybody, right? Like, that's his guy. And maybe Steph not okaying what Draymond did is the message to Draymond. Steph's not going to down talk Draymond, but by not plus oneing Draymond, that is a way to say, okay, dude, like, that's probably not the right thing to do. And it is also interesting. Everyone comes to Poole's defense, right? Steve Kerr, Steph, like Andre. And so by that notion, it does sound like Draymond was the one who was in the wrong, and at least in their eyes, when it comes
I
to
definitely think
physical
Draymond
basketball
was.
practice.
Especially how they responded, and you look at how it was kind of pictured in the media, the first couple reports, where it was like, Jordan Poole might be acting a little different. This might have to do with salary. Like, then they were just like completely denied that there, and them denying it is kind of taking Jordan Poole's side.
Yeah,
because because the reports were saying he comes in with a different type of energy now, and then they're saying like, no, he's still the same guy. But
he's a unique cat, though, right? Like, he's like his arc or his origin story in the NBA did not start well. Like, there was talk about, gosh, the Warriors missed on this pick, and the guy just figures it out going to the G League and then coming back and being vital at the end of that run where the Warriors lose in the play-in. And then last year, he's taking advantage of Klay not being healthy, and he's the sixth man of the year. I don't really care who won the sixth man. Jordan Poole was sixth man
hero.
of the year. There we go. But man, he just played so well when they needed him to, and he fit in, and he does things in the way that they need him to. And if Steph ever loses a little bit of that athleticism or ball handling or creative ability, maybe Jordan Poole is the one who can pick that slack up. So, I didn't mean to really tie Klay into this in any way because he's obviously not involved, but just kind of thinking ahead and thinking about what Klay had said in Japan. I do wonder, I wonder if Clay's kind of looking over his shoulder and a little
Yeah.
worried. But the other thing, if you're Klay, this is both a good and a bad thing. Clay's the second highest paid player on this team, but he's also way overpaid compared to the rest of his teammates. And so if you're looking to cut salary, like his number is like the big one that you draw the circle around, but he's also very beloved. We do not want him to go anywhere, but I
Yeah.
imagine his negotiation will not be as Klay friendly. It may be like, hey dude, like, you got hurt and we were just paying you tons and tons of money. Like we need a little discount here. And
What did
that's
he make? 80 million, like sitting on his couch. Like it was 2 years he missed. And
yeah.
what is he
Yeah.
making? Like $40 million a year?
It's like, I think it's over 40.
It's definitely one of the worst contracts in like recent history. Just in terms of like he didn't play for 2 years. So that's 2 years of it that your salary was, kind of capped a little, and he was the reason why.
And they still were able to do it with the salary
Yep.
being what it was. I mean, it speaks a lot to the front office, speaks a lot to Joe Lacob. But okay, so let's put the drama to the side a little bit because there was some cool news. There was some good stuff happening in Warriors land. Warriors went to Japan and they won 2 games out in Japan. I was a little frustrated because I got league pass at the last minute just to watch the first game. That was at was it like at 3 in the morning?
10. Oh, yeah.
It was like at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll just get it. And then they'll have it on demand for me, when I wake up. And then I go into the app and like, there's no on demand. I was like, what's going on here? How come they're not showing it? But I guess it was an NBA TV game, not necessarily a league pass game. So I didn't get to watch it, but I did watch all the scoring highlights. YouTube does a pretty good thing. And this is kind of a little inside, little tip here for people who are trying to cover basketball and do podcasts and stuff. The NBA's YouTube channel, they give you like a 10-minute cut of the game, which is nothing but just the scoring. Like you just see all the buckets over. So you don't, you're gonna miss a lot of nuance. But if you were trying to get something out of these games, you could watch the little 10-minute cut. And so that's what I did for game 1. And that was the Wiseman game, right? Like that was the game where Wiseman had, I think he had 20 and he's crushing lobs and he's looking really athletic to the point where Bill Simmons is like, he's a pretty big guy. He's kind of long. It's like, yeah, no kidding. The dude's 7'3". That's why we were dying last year to see him play, to see him put it out there before the playoffs. But and then we got to see a little PB&J. We got to see some Ryan Rollins, Moody and Kuminga. So the first 2 games against Washington, who stood out to you in a way where you were kind of like, oh, this may change my opinion about the rotation or about who's going to go to Santa Cruz or, that whole thing?
Wiseman obviously was the clear first game. Like, wow. I think what wowed me more was that I had a picture of what I thought Ryan Rollins would be without really diving into the tape, like too much. And I was like, okay, this guy's going to like just be the smart player, make the right read, play really good defense. And on plus minus, and as I'm watching it, like I listen to plus minus and like, no, like this guy's like a go get your bucket type of guy.
Yes.
And I was like, I didn't realize that. And so DiVincenzo was more put into the role of making the right play, passing a little bit. So I think that definitely changes my perspective on what DiVincenzo can bring to the table in terms of what his role might be for this team outside of just playing defense and shooting threes. Might be more playmaking in there too. But yeah, PBJ, man, he is like what he is. He's a coach's kid. I think he said it himself. Like he just does the right things. he's smart. He plays above what like the rookie label is, making those dumb mistakes. Like I don't think he'll have as many. I think Andy Liu said that he said that Moody and PBJ are Kerr guys and Kuminga and Wiseman are Lakeup guys.
That's a good
But
way to put it.
I mean Moody and PBJ, they do the right stuff, man. They're good. They're smart, and it's fun to watch, especially at PBJ's age, that he's not really making any dumb errors, So I like some of what he had in his bag, and yeah, PBJ was a fun watch. JaMychal Green, I feel like I expected a little more. I've kind of been pumping him up on this pod as like a direct Otto Porter Jr. replacement, like will literally come in and be Otto Porter Jr. I still believe that, but it didn't really look like much in Japan. Maybe he just needs some more minutes because Otto Porter Jr. wasn't like the same type of minutes right when he came in versus what he was towards the end. So
I guess the thing that I was not to say disappointed, I wanted to see Kuminga kind of show off more skill on the court. And he looked very similar to how he ended the season, whereas Moody looked way more confident. And we saw, some of those summer league games where Moody was just, playing so well. You're like, okay, Moody shouldn't be playing in these games anymore. But I do because Kuminga's kind of like the darling of last year, right? He's the 7th pick. He's the guy
in a loaded draft class.
The guy who, did people miss? Should Kuminga have been a higher pick? And so he showed all those flashes. He can go above the rim. They're getting him lobs. He's crushing stuff. Just jumping higher than people expect him to. And then so now what's this year? This year's like the evolution of it for him. And it looks like to be a little bit of a slower evolution. But you got to remember, like he's still a really young guy. His basketball skills are still being strengthened and sharpened. And also the other thing that is, when you see guys like Jalen Green and some of the younger players from last year, they're going to take a leap this year. And some of that is because they had so much run last year where Kuminga didn't really get that run. So he's going to be a little bit behind when it comes to the overall minutes and the reps that those guys will have. But you're hopeful that his basketball intelligence and his winning intelligence is heightened because he was able to play last year all the way. He logged garbage minutes in the finals, but I feel like he logged some pretty good minutes in the first round.
I don't think he did in the second. I don't think he did in. He logged those minutes against the Mavs in Game 4, where the reserves almost came back.
Yeah. There you go.
That was like the only significant playoff game for him, though.
Yeah. So I would like to see, or I'd like to read more about his evolution, because what I don't want to see happen is people go like, oh, this is the Kuminga who, all the draft people who said he was going to be X, Y, and Z, and he's like, young and he's just kind of, he's like a mold. You got to mold this ball of clay. I want to see him take that next level. He's not going to play 30 minutes a game like some of these other guys, but if he can force himself into that rotation and get 15 minutes a game and shoot that ball consistently, I think that's like even more important to them than some of this other stuff, because I think we're already sort of earmarking Moody as like, yep, Moody's going to be good. He'll have his young player moments, but he already plays like a vet. Who knows about Green and what his role is going to be, at least right now. But DiVincenzo, DiVincenzo plays basketball the right way. He's pass first. He's going to be more playmaker than Rollins, which we definitely saw, which is kind of a weird thing to me, because if you're Rollins and you really want to make this team, you go, okay, what does this team need more?
Mm-hmm.
Do they need more shooting and scoring, or do they need more ball handling and playmaking? And I would have thought ball handling and playmaking, but maybe that's just not who he is, because DiVincenzo.
No, that's what I think it is. I don't think that's who he is, and I just thought the opposite.
Because DiVincenzo's essentially he's a small 2, and they're having him play 1.
Yeah, I think more on the Kuminga thing. Like I personally believe, I'm not sure if I've said it on this podcast. I may have said it on my podcast, but I believe that, and I think it's just a regular, easy thought to come up with, but there are players who I believe that they need to develop a certain way, and it doesn't mean they're worse or they're better. Like for LaMelo Ball, how everyone's like, oh, LaMelo should have gotten drafted by number 2 by the Warriors. Like, I don't think LaMelo would have been LaMelo had he had to play under a system his first year and not just get the reps and the touches that he got in Charlotte to become that guy. I think that's the same for a Jalen Green in this. I think that's the same for, you could look at up and down guys who need to be the number 1 guy, guys who need to go be, I had 5 seconds left on the shot clock, I need to go get a bucket. I think those guys need the keys to the offense right when they come into the league to go through the bumps and the bruises and then to take that jump in the second and third year. I think a guy like Jalen Suggs would have been perfect in the Kuminga role, just of like, I just need to sit and soak up everything of a championship team, of just, not being the guy right away. I think that would have benefited a guy like Jalen Suggs. I think that would have benefited, who else am I thinking of? Like a Jabari Smith Jr. There's a couple other guys who who I've been using as examples, who I'm not entirely remembering right now, but I just don't think Kuminga would have totally benefited from just getting the keys to an offense and just going to try to cook in Orlando or in OKC. Like, I don't think it would have been that pretty, and for him though, I still think it is beneficial to go through what he's going through. Ideally though, I think he should have been a more staple man in this rotation for the second unit. I think it is for Moody, like, although he is looking more sharp, Kuminga's the better player at the end of the day, in my opinion, just what he could become.
More talent, like higher ceiling,
Talent,
you're saying.
and for positional need for the Warriors, he kind of just is the odd man out. But I think for his second year, having gone through all that his first year, and if nothing changes on the minutes per game, and he has, made a little bit of a change, and the minutes per game is staying the same, I think I'd be a little frustrated.
You know who will tell us if Kuminga is frustrated?
Who's close to him?
Stephen A. Smith, baby.
Oh yeah,
Stephen A. Smith got the Kuminga connection. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, the last thing, we'll focus a little bit on Wiseman here, because I think that is like Wiseman playing at a level a little bit higher than what's expected of him. I think that changes the Warriors' ceiling. And the Warriors they're going to be one of the favorites to get far, maybe even to win the championship. But they did lose key guys, right? We talked about Otto, GP, who now we know, it's been stated, the only reason that GP didn't come back is because they weren't willing to pay what Portland paid.
Yeah.
So that, that's a business move for the Warriors. They just did not want to go higher into that tax. So losing those 2 guys, I think, is a big thing. But what the prognosticators, what the media is really banking upon is Klay healthy, Steph back, Draymond back, and they saw how all of the pieces just fit back together into the playoffs. And let's take that the whole season again and see what happens. So I do think they should be one of the favorites. But what takes that to the next level is James Wiseman living up to that billing as the second pick of that draft behind LaMelo, and being that guy, and being the guy who goes out and smashes lobs and plays that verticality and can come and block shots and get rebounds. I thought he rebounded pretty well. He still drops the basketball a lot, man. He drops the ball too much for a guy with his size and athleticism. So, but if he goes to a place where we didn't think he could go, at least in this year, since he's been off injured, man, that just raises where the Warriors can go. And that's what will be really interesting, is if they get something out of a Wiseman or a Kuminga or a Moody that is a different level than what the expectation is, then that just raises the ceiling, and that'll be really fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be like pessimistic on James Wiseman, but like, great game in the first game, but I just still see the same stuff that I saw in his rookie season that like kind of bugged me a little. But again, he missed a year and a half, 2 years or whatever it was. Like, he deserves that time. And I think that he will be given that time. I just think that it will be a little bit bumpy. I'm just wondering at what point in the season, he gets more comfortable and is able to flourish more because of it. Because we've said, you've mainly been the first one to say it, like that he should just be a rim running shot blocker, pick and roll guy, just lob threat, shot blocker, that just simplify his role for this year. I have a feeling that it's the number 2 pick, one behind Anthony Edwards, one ahead of LaMelo. You look at a lot of the guys in his draft class. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But Sadiq Bey is playing really well. Even my guy Jaden McDaniels on the Timberwolves looks awesome too. Like, even though that draft class wasn't that super star studded, like the top 3 who you look at, Anthony Edwards might be an MVP in this league at one point. We'll see with LaMelo if he gets another piece, but those are some guys right there. And I'm sure he wants to live up to that. And I'm sure that he might be trying to do a little too much. And I'm just wondering, this who tells him to stop it, or who tells him, or if he just keeps doing it. And at one point it works.
Well, you could tell he's thinking out there, right? He doesn't want to disappoint. When he gets the ball, it's not, he doesn't immediately, I mean, I'm sure he immediately knows what he wants to do, but there's this transition into him catching it and then going, like there's still that little delay where it's almost like he's like thinking like he's got to like back somebody down in the paint or something and do some big man stuff. But no, he doesn't need to do that stuff, at least not right now. Maybe, to evolve his game as a true center like that may be something that they can work on. But for this team, it just needs to be JaVale. Like, think about how valuable JaVale was for those 10 minutes when he was crushing lobs and blocking shots and stuff. Like, hopefully Wiseman will play more than those 10 minutes, but man, just be JaVale 2.0 and you're going to be completely fine.
I think it's really beneficial that he's getting to go up against Looney one-on-one after practice a lot, and he's not scoring on him, which I don't think is the biggest deal, but like, I think once he starts to be able to consistently score on Looney, like, I'll feel better, because a lot of his shots, like he does he catches the ball and does like the jump turnaround little hook. It's like, you're getting 2 feet above Looney. Like, this is just a bunny that you just need to put in, and he can't get it in because Looney's able to make him uncomfortable and keep him off balance, because Looney's just a really smart and good defender. I think once he's able to start scoring on Looney efficiently, then it might have been more useful, I guess, to have a 7-footer for him to go at, and it might be easier for him to, not easier, but more beneficial if he starts scoring on the 7-footer. But I think Looney being there for him to go up one-on-one against Loon is going to be really beneficial for him this season.
All right. Do you want to do your thing about how you're a little worried about who the backup 5 is going to be if Wiseman doesn't play well?
It's not necessarily that he doesn't play well. It's just more prone to injury. I think that they're looking at maybe a JaMychal Green or a Draymond as a backup 5 during the regular season. I don't think that's the right move. I think that they should have used that 2-way spot to bring in someone. I was floating Travion Williams. Maybe he's not the biggest 5, but he still is a guy who will go get you rebounds. And I just think that was important, because we looked at what happened to Draymond. That back stuff is like, sure, it might not have been on a play where he was playing backup 5, but I'm sure, having big old wear and tear of like these guys backing you down in the paint, and you're having to box out, and they're just like, I'm sure that just does wear and tear on your back. And I don't want to see Draymond have to do that in the regular season for that many games, nor do I want to see JaMychal Green have to do it, because these are both vets who are probably a little more prone to that kind of injury. That's what we have Loon for. He was all 82 last year. And I think that if James Wiseman, knock on wood, misses some time, I just think it would have been more beneficial to have a guy who's meant to do that, instead of having to go small and risking more injury for some really important guys.
Okay, so what do you think about Kuminga at the 5?
If it gets him more playing time, I'm into it. But I told you and Ben in the chat that I just saw people moving him last year. Like, you look at Kuminga's stature, and I'm like, this guy looks like a freak of nature. Like, I wouldn't want to ever see him if I'm in like if I'm drunk and he says something mean to me. I'd be like, my bad.
He almost looked like he doesn't know. He didn't like know how to box out NBA players or something. It was weird.
And it's like people were just like, and they're bigger than him, but you'd think he'd put up more of a fight, but they were just kind of able to move him in the post. and I didn't think he was able to hold him. And I think Ben said it was like, dude, he's like 18 or 19. Like, yeah, you're right, but it just felt like there was something missing there in some type of mechanic, or I don't know if his lower body strength is as great as his upper body strength, but I mean, he's able to jump out of the gym. So
the one thing, the one other reason where I'm not really worried about it is they can always find some tall person. Like there's so many bigs who are kind of on the fringes of rosters and stuff. I mean, Jordan Bell, is he still playing in Santa Cruz?
what about WWE superstar Dwight Howard?
Yeah, and I mean that's a possibility of a locker room scenario, but I don't know. Maybe
Dwight Howard or
Boogie.
Boogie? Who do you want?
I was gonna say, well, what's Boogie doing?
Yeah, I don't know. He was at
Is he on a team?
Wembanyama versus Scoot yesterday or 2 days ago.
Is he on?
Boogie's not on a team.
No, he's not on a team. So that's interesting. I mean, he's out there. He knows the franchise. I wonder if they kind of have him circled a little bit. But I mean, there were, if you remember that Denver series, Boogie would come in and he'd flex and he'd get all crazy, and he's playing against smaller guys and he's doing business, and then it's like 5 minutes later they're like, no, you gotta get Boogie off the court, man. Like the Warriors are just.
I was actually, thank you for bringing that up, because I was trying to remember who Denver's backup 5 was last year, because I was like, it couldn't be worse than what they have right now. They have DeAndre Jordan right now, and it looks awful. And I forgot it was Boogie. I'd probably rather have Boogie than DeAndre Jordan.
All right, let's last thing. I didn't even tell you we were going to talk about this, but I know this is like catnip for you. What did you think? The matchup, the probable 1 and 2 picks in next year's draft. They had a little G League showcase the other night on ESPN2. Victor, I know it's,
you got it.
Like it's a bad, it's like a thing to, Wemby to like just take the easy way out. Yeah. Wembanyama. Yeah. Victor Wembanyama. I think I want to forget that N. I just want to call him Wembayama. The N. I got to remember the N. Victor
I've
Wembanyama.
seen Wembanyama. People mess it up like that. Yeah.
And then Scoot Henderson. What did you think of the matchup? And I know all eyes were on Big Vic there. Like that dude. I was just like, okay. What is he doing here? He's like 25 feet out calling for the basketball and just splashing threes against these guys. What's going on? I've never seen a guy, and I guess we've talked about Chet a little bit. Like the size and the skill set is similar, but Wembanyama's got Chet by like at least 2 or 3 inches, right?
Yeah. And I think Wembanyama is more skillful as well. But I just like how Victor. I've been on this kid pretty early, and I mean, if you, I'm sure everyone's heard his name, but I really wanted to like check out his tape. I think there was either the under 19, the U19s, or it probably was the U19s. I think like the Olympic matchup between France and the USA's U19 squad, and that's where I learned who Jaden Ivey was. I actually didn't even know who Jaden Ivey was, and I was like, oh my god, this kid's like John Morant. But that's Victor and Chet went at it, and I'm just happy that if you looked at any social media page, it was all Victor last night. Mm-hmm. Like I couldn't get through one scroll without seeing Wembanyama. So, and deservingly so. The kid is a 3-level scorer at 7'4" who can block a shot that doesn't seem like you're going to get blocked, and he'll just come out of nowhere and block it. There was a play in the first game where he reaches and steals it from Scoot, but they call it a foul. And I genuinely believe the ref called it a foul because she was like, how could it not have been a foul? Like that just, and then you look at the replay and it's just arms have outstretched all the way out to tip the ball out of Scoot's hands. And it was a clear steal, but he's just going to shock the league. And, I think a lot of people are comparing him to, one of those generational prospects. Like where does he rank amongst the LeBrons, amongst the ADs, amongst the John Walls at the time, amongst the, even Greg Oden, wasn't he super hyped?
Greg Oden and Kevin Durant, same draft.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think when you look at it just from a skillful, and then you look at the stature perspective, like how is this guy not damn near number one? A 7'4" guy who could do what a guard does. So he just put that all on display, and he was, you look at his stat line, it's like 37 points, like 7 for 11 from 3. So if you're reading that stat line and just looking player A versus player B, you don't know anything about the player, and you see 37 points, 7 for 11 from 3, you're probably like, oh, Steph or Dame probably just had a crazy game, right? And then you look at one more stat down and you see like 4 to 7 blocks, and you're like, who the hell just did that? Like, who could have possibly just done that?
Okay, your guy Barlow, I don't know if he does comps or not, but I can't think of a comp. Who's Wembanyama's comp?
Yeah, there's no comp. Maybe we were hoping Chet
It's
played good this
probably
year.
KD, right? It's probably like a version of like KD is he's not as long and he's not big. KD is very clearly a small forward, but I don't know, like that's the closest I could think of. Like, cuz I'm going all the way back in the day, so there was a player named Ralph Sampson out of Virginia, and he was 7'4", and they paired him up with Akeem Olajuwon, so they were the power forward center combination for the Rockets. And in '86, they beat the Lakers to go to the finals against the Celtics, but the Celtics took care of them. But like, he's nowhere near as athletic as Wembanyama. He couldn't handle the ball like Wembanyama. So I don't even know who the comp is, but like in my mind, I'm like, can it be Ralph Sampson? There was another guy who the Bulls drafted who was like a 7-foot small forward. His name is Brad Sellers, but he wasn't even really that good of a player. But the only one I can come up with, like, it's not even the greatest is KD, because KD was like the guy. I guess maybe Porzingis, but Porzingis
It probably is like a Porzingis KD thing.
Yeah.
He's a one of one. Victor Wembanyama is a one of one. It's hard to put a comp on him. I just feel like the KD comp, for some reason, gets thrown around too much.
Yeah.
But I think if you were to pin it on someone, I think Wembanyama is probably the closest one to pin it on, just in terms of like a big old dude who could create shots like at an elite level. But I mean, Scoot Henderson too. Like, I know we've talked about going to that G League game where it was the Santa Cruz Warriors at Chase Center playing against the G League Ignite. We went for Wiseman's return, but I mean, number 2 was Scoot. We wanted to go see Scoot. He didn't play. Unfortunately, it was more Jaden Hardy, Dyson Daniels, and Wiseman. But Scoot is like unreal, man. Scoot's unreal. He went into the G League at age 17, I believe, and was able to.
Yeah, because this is his second year in the G League, right?
Second year in the Ignite. Yeah, on the Ignite. And he was 17 when he went, and he played as probably their best player. I think he was their best player, but he wasn't draft eligible, so he goes back and plays another year. And what he did was, like, he was so controlled, poised, and like in control of what his offense was doing. Like, he was able to get buckets. He to me looked like a 3-level scorer who was just so controlled when it came to playmaking. He'd drive in and just make an easy pass right out into the corner or something. And I mean, I think me and Obi had this conversation, but it's like, if Jaden Ivey has a good year for the Pistons, and this is a complete hypothetical because I really don't think this will happen. Like, we were just throwing out hypotheticals, but if Jaden Ivey has like a really good year for the Pistons and the Pistons are drafting number 2, like, do you really say no to Scoot Henderson and then just, like, I don't know, trade down or draft another guy? And it's like, no, I think you got to go Scoot and then say goodbye to Jaden Ivey. Like, I think a majority of the teams who are going to end up down there, whether it's Houston and they have, Kevin Porter Jr., or whether whoever's down there and ends up getting the number 2 pick, like, Scoot's the guy, man. Scoot's the guy.
So Scoot's a 6'3" point guard. And when he's trying to compare, he said he's a one of none. So he's a pretty confident guy.
Yeah. I'm excited for you to learn more as the season progresses about more prospects, and I'm mainly interested in hearing your thoughts on the Thompson twins. Born in Oakland and then moved to, I want to say, Florida to play AAU when they were like 8 or 9 or something, but they are like these 6'7" or 6'8", like Kuminga athleticism, jump out of the gym. The better brother, who's termed as the better brother right now, I think his name's Amen Thompson. He's like a crazy elite playmaker at like 6'8", and can just dunk out of the gym. The only knock on them right now, from making them like a consensus top, I don't know, like, Amen could, I guess, potentially jump Scoot if the guy could just hit a 3-point shot consistently. Both brothers, it's a tough time hitting the 3, but I'm interested in, as the season progresses, like, this is an interesting and a pretty loaded draft class with Wembanyama at the top, Scoot number 2, and there's like these crazy wings from like 4 to 7, whether it's Tariq Whitehead, I think there's Cam Whitmore, and there's the 2 Thompson twins. Like, it's just pretty deep.
Yeah, I mean, with you being on this show, we'll do more draft stuff because I know you're really interested in it. But before we go, because we both have League Pass, I sent you a note saying, hey, I want you to watch this old game because they have the classic games per team. I think there's 15 games per team. And we're not going to go all the way to the Rick Barry Warriors in the 70s. Like, and plus the video is not great. But I told you to go back to 87. There's a game, I think it's a game 4, Warriors and Lakers. This is the peak of the LA Lakers power, 1987. They, I think they won like 67 games or something that year. And these little plucky Warriors have to play them in the second round. And they're getting killed in the first 3 games. And they go to game 4 is in Oakland. And Sleepy Floyd has a game and a half. So I wanted you to watch that game because there's a couple of interesting things in there, and maybe we'll talk about sort of the idea of what basketball was in the late 80s. When I was kind of getting into it, I think I was only 10 years old when this game happened. I remember where I was when I watched it though. And versus how we watch basketball now, or how basketball has evolved. So I think it'll be a pretty good conversation. We won't talk about it today because you still got to watch it. I'm only like halfway through, but it's fascinating. The game itself is so different, but like the Lakers are just like bullying the crap out of the Warriors. Like George Karl is the Warriors coach, and he's trying to find all of these different, like, what's going to work against these guys. And Magic is having an all-time bad first half. Like, he's getting so mad, but he's like literally the best player in basketball at that point. 1987, he wins the MVP. So we'll kind of go over it, and maybe if people listening, if they have League Pass and want to watch that game, shoot us some notes. You can find us on Twitter at BSPN shows if you watch, because I do want to talk about it. Maybe I don't know, a few weeks or so, because the season is coming pretty soon. Because we're gonna miss next week. I am gonna be out of town. I'm gonna be in upstate New York, so we won't be able to record. But the Warriors' regular season starts on Tuesday, the 18th. So that is less than 2 weeks from now. Warriors and Lakers open up the regular season, and that's right game, right? Is that Tuesday the 18th on TNT? I think that's right.
I know the Warriors open up against the Lakers. Yeah.
So the next time we record will be a couple of days after that, unless we decide that maybe we want to live stream for like a half an hour after the first game or something, just to do something fun. But we'll make sure people find out. We'll tweet about it, or we'll write it on the Facebook group or the Facebook page, the BSPN Show's Facebook page. So but that'll be fun. Regular season's coming. Like I said, we'll miss next week, but we'll be back the following week when I am back in town. And do you want to talk about the show that you just recently did for the BAM?
Yeah. We had on Kelly Eco of The Athletic to talk all things Rockets. He's the beat writer for The Athletic, covering the Rockets. So he's kind of got all the ins and outs of the team, all the behind the scenes stuff, and everything in between. So it was a really good, I feel like we got off a lot of good questions, and he gave off some really good answers. So I think everyone should go check it out. I'm just going to say it now. I'm just going to start saying the guests that we're getting. We got Tony Jones on Friday, Kobe Price of the Orlando Sentinel on Sunday. Tony Jones is Utah Jazz guy from The Athletic. So lots of cool guests coming up.
You guys got to do your homework, man.
Oh, I do my homework.
I sent somebody your Krasinski pod because he said he had reached out to me, and he's like, he was talking about another podcast that I do, and he was like, I listen to Simmons, I listen to Office Ladies, and then he's like, and I listen to you. I was like, wow, it's a kind of a funny like mix of shows.
Yeah.
But then he said that because I sometimes on the wrestling stuff that I do, I'll bring up the Warriors or whatever. And he said he's a Timberwolves fan. So then I shot him the link to your podcast, and he's like a big Krasinski fan. So I told him to listen. So
Krasinski's such a good guy, man.
Yeah,
a guy
excellent guy.
I knew about Krasinski. I'd listened to him on Zach Lowe's show, and I've heard of him, throughout but like when I actually got to talk to him, like, the guy's such a cool guy. And, he jumped to one of my favorite beat writers, like up there with Marcus and MT and TK. Like, he's up there now.
All right, so we'll be back. Give us a follow, BSPN Shows on Twitter and Instagram. If you subscribe to our YouTube page, that would be great. And then obviously our podcast feed, BSPN Bay Area Sports Podcasting Network. If you can throw us a 5-star review, we will be back on Sunday late afternoon 49ers and Carolina Panthers. We're going to live stream after that game, and then the Red and Gold Standard as well. We'll have a preview of that game that we will throw up in the podcast feed probably sometime tomorrow. So lots of content in that feed. If you like Giants, 49ers, and Warriors, it is a nice little place to get some conversation. All right, so for Bri, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.